Welcome to the Can't Stop the Growth podcast, the home service podcast dedicated to personal and leadership development. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and this week I am joined by a new guest. If you're ready to grow as a leader, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Today, I have a very, very special guest on the podcast with us. It's not every day that you get to read a book and then talk to the author at the same time. Today, I get that distinct pleasure, and hopefully you guys get some value out of it as well, along with maybe utilizing some of his books as resources or as training to become better leaders and to lead our people in the right direction. Without any further ado, would like to welcome the author of numerous books and America's breakthrough coach, Brian Biro. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Well, thank you so much, Chad. And you get the award because you said Brian Biro. It's hard to do Brian Biro's bio. It comes out Byron Biro every time. So it's a pleasure to be with you.
Awesome. Well, Brian, why don't you tell the audience, I've read a number of your books and really enjoyed them. So I know a little bit about your background and everything, but why don't you let the audience know a little bit about kind of your background and then maybe leading up to what you're doing today.
You bet. You know, I've had a great run, Chad. I love what I do. I've had three really distinct careers. Each one I thoroughly loved, and they all come together around a central theme, which is a belief in people, belief in our possibilities, belief that there aren't any overachievers. We got more in us than we ever dreamed of. And my first career, I went to Stanford University long ago. We won't mention any years. And when I graduated, I had put myself through school by coaching swimming and teaching swimming, and I loved it. So my first career, I dove into that field, pun intended, as a United States swimming coach, and had a great run. My team became one of the largest teams in America. And it reinforced something that I think I just knew intuitively, that you don't just coach a sport, you really coach people. It's about helping people discover their possibilities, to overcome their fears and obstacles. And I probably would still be a swimming coach, except for I had no life. My team became so huge that it was 24/7. I wanted more in my life. And so I'm probably the only guy, Chad, who went to graduate school to get a life instead of a job. And I did. I ended up going in, that's when I met my wife and we started our family. And I went into the corporate world. In my second career, I became a corporate vice president of a large transportation company in the Pacific Northwest, and then into a international training company. And that's when I started to do what I've been doing for the last 31 years, which I started doing team building for our own organization, because we were really siloed and separated. And I loved it so much. So at the peak of a huge turnaround, when I really started doing speaking and seminars, I said to my wife, we're doing great. Let's quit. I got to go do this. This is what I was put on earth to do. And she, as an adventurer, said, let's go. And so for the last 31 years, I've been doing what I think I'm put on earth to do, which is as a speaker and an author. And again, that central core is a belief in our possibilities and bringing out the best in others and self.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can relate a whole lot with your comment about the swimming coach, and understanding that you weren't teaching swimming, you were coaching people, and I think that as for those of you that don't know, my name's Chad Peterman, and I'm the president of Peterman Brothers, and we do heating, plumbing, and electrical. And part of that is I was always afraid to jump in simply because I didn't know how to do those things. And it was when I found out that it's a people business more so than a technical business. One of the things that you utilize as part of your central theme, and we were talking about it before we jumped on here, was the principles of John Wooden. Being a Hoosier myself, John Wooden is very near and dear to our hearts here. My wife also works for Purdue, which was where he went, and has a statue out front and the whole 9 yards. Tell us a little bit about your how you came to have a relationship with Coach Wooden, and maybe some of those central themes that you've used throughout your writing.
Absolutely. That's a pure joy, because Coach Wooden was very, 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 very dear to my heart. And in case any of your listeners don't know, John Wooden was the greatest college basketball coach of all time. His teams at UCLA won 10 national championships in 12 years. Perspective. No other coach in men's history has won more than 5. Coach K at Duke has won 5. He's going to try to win 6. But Coach Wooden won 10 in 12 years. But to tell you about the character of the guy, he would have been the first to tell you he didn't win any championships in the first 27 years that he coached. He used to say, it's what you learn after you know everything that makes the difference. And he was an incredible guy. And when I first met him, first of all, I grew up admiring him. I grew up in Southern California, and I loved not just the UCLA basketball, but what I loved more was the way he conducted himself. He was a gentleman. He was someone who was thoughtful and considerate. He got his point across. He was a strong man, but he did it in a gentle and kind and humble way. And truly, being humble is a vital key to being a great leader. And for a very simple reason. First of all, being humble doesn't mean you can't be confident. You can have tremendous confidence and be very humble, because being humble doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. But the reason why being humble is so crucial and why he was such an example is only those who are humble are always lifelong learners. They always believe they can get better. They always believe there's something more to learn. They are constantly students of life. And that really was John Wooden. And so I grew up admiring him. And then when I was in my corporate career, I had people all around North America who I led, who were teaching seminars on leadership and team building and thriving on change. And I was communicating with them, writing newsletters. And I thought, what would be better than to interview the greatest of them all, the guy I considered the greatest team builder ever. And I knew where he lived in Southern California and Encino, California, because that's where I had been a coach myself as a swimming coach. Somehow, Chad, I got his number. I don't remember how I did it. I called him up on the phone. He answered the phone. Now, I was not ready for that. I thought I'd talk to 17 people before I'd get to coach. And I stumbled and I mumbled and I stuttered. And finally, I got out that I'd love to come and chat with him and interview him so I could share what I learned from him with my team. And a gracious gentleman that he was, he said, sure, come on down. So I drove to Encino, California, sat in his living room. He lived very modestly. For about 2 hours, we talked. And by the end of that, we became lifelong friends. And he ended up writing the foreword to my first book, Beyond Success, which is one of the greatest gifts of my life. And what I learned, there's so many things I learned from John Wooden, but the reason why that first book was called Beyond Success has a lot to do with Coach Wooden. And that was because the idea of Beyond Success says to look at success in a way that most people don't. Most people look at success, people would look at John Wooden and say it's all about how much he won. And obviously he wanted to win, but there's a much deeper understanding. In 27 years at UCLA, the greatest coach in history never said the words winning or losing to his players. He never said the words. Now, did he want to win? Oh, yeah. But what he wanted more was for them to focus on what he considered success. And that's the definition of success, which Beyond Success really surrounds. And it says success is peace of mind. And it comes from only one thing. It comes from knowing you've given the best of which you're capable. In other words, you focus on what you put in, and then good things will come out instead of focusing on what comes out and hoping good things go in. And that huge difference was really at the foundation of what made him so unique, so extraordinary, so always growing. I consider it one of the greatest gifts of my life that he was my friend. And in that first conversation, I'll share with you a fun insight he gave me. I asked him a question that every person who listens to you, who works with a team, whether it's your family, whether you're leading your company, whether you're an entrepreneur, a sole entrepreneur, the question I asked him is, what's the difference, coach, between a good team and a great one? And he kind of shocked me at first, because I thought he'd say, well, it starts with recruiting and talent. You got to have the recruiting and talent. That's what most coaches would say and leaders would say. And the first thing he said was, Brian, it doesn't have that much to do with recruiting and talent. He said, there are no overachievers. He said, we are all underachievers. And what he meant was, we don't realize sometimes how much we got inside of us. And he said, after a lifetime of working with people, it became clear to him that the difference that made the difference between a good leader and a great leader, a good team and a great team, a good parent and a great parent, in his estimation, came down to the difference between two little words. He said, a good or average leader, a good or average coach, business person, parent, doctor, nurse, speaker, author, a good or average anything. Those people are willing to support each other and the greater good of their team. And the key word he used was willing. Now, I always thought willing, Chad, is a really good word. It's a heck of a lot better than unwilling. But then he described it in a way that I bet some of your listeners may be able to really relate to. He said, willing is about the same spirit, effort, and energy with which a teenager cleans his room. Yeah, they'll do it because they're really hoping to eat this week. They're not excited about it. He said on a great team, a great leader, a great coach, he said those people are absolutely eager to do whatever it takes. No job is too big, no job is too small. He said it's only when you break through from just being willing to being eager that you have a chance to move to your potential. And so that gives you an insight that he focused on on controlling your controllables. Because when you do that, you create momentum and confidence and possibility. So, there's a million things he taught me. I have some pretty fun stories about him too.
Yeah, that's remarkable. The funny part about that last thing, the difference between willing and eager is something that one practice I have that it really kind of grounds me and helps me, kind of generate that eagerness is writing to my kids. So I've got a 3.5-year-old daughter and a 7-month, he'll be 8 months old next week. And so I write to them every morning, and it's so funny. I took that exact quote that you had from John Wooden, and I think it was last Thursday, I was reading There Are No Overachievers, and I pulled that quote out and I said, this is something to live by. Where do you stand in relation to the things that you have to do today? Are you willing or are you eager? And that truly, to me, separates someone who's looking to grow and someone who's looking to impact lives, as opposed to someone who's just willing to check the boxes each day.
I love that. That's so great. Both writing to your kids and using that quote. When he said that to me, I'm kind of a visual guy, and I created this picture in my mind of what I call the eager meter. And it's really right in your heart. It's part of your heart. And if you picture it like a speedometer, with on the 0 side is willing, and on the 200-mile-an-hour side is eager. And the most important thing we can do when we work with people is to help them move that eager meter towards eager and away from willing. And here's the most beautiful truth about the eager meter, and why it's so great that you're bringing that to your kids, even at an early age. Like it or not, we're 100% in charge of our own eager meter. In other words, nobody can ever give up for us. Nobody else controls our own faith, our own hope, or our own energy. And so, moving that eager meter just to that eager side is a great way to just elevate every aspect of you, from your attitude to your effort to your enjoyment of every single precious moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I often tell people, and I think that eager meter is a great visualization. Is, so many people want to grow, right? Hey, I want to be a manager someday. Hey, I want to, make more money. Hey, I want to do all of this. Yet, their eager meter is not, you're going pretty slow. You're in first gear, and understanding and really harping on the fact that it is in your control. Yeah, there are things you don't know. There's things that you'll have to learn along the way. But at the end of the day, if you attack every day, if you came in and were just eager to tackle the day and help those around you, you would become whatever it is that you want to become, and probably do it a lot quicker than.
No question about it. Every year, Chad, the Gallup poll people do a study, not political. It's a study called the State of the American Workforce. And what it does is it measures the level of engagement, I would call it eagerness, of American employees across every industry, from heating and air conditioning to manufacturing to high tech to healthcare. So they do this every year. They've done it for about 20 plus years. And every year it breaks out very consistently. And I'm going to give you and your listeners the sort of 20-year average, but know that it's real consistent. And it breaks into 3 specific groups in terms of engagement. And why this study is so important is there's been so many studies that show that when employees have a higher level of engagement, their productivity is around 40 to 50% higher than when their engagement is lower. And that is a huge number and a huge kind of advantage and breakthrough points. Now, fully engaged employees have a mantra. They all do. Their mantra is, oh yeah, whatever you throw at them, oh yeah, we're going to have to hustle, man. We're down 2 people, right? Oh yeah, we're going to have a tough year, but I think we can pull it out. Oh yeah. So just everybody listen, I'm quiz you a little bit. What would you guess is the percentage of American employees who are, oh yeah, out of the 100%, how many would you say are just, oh yeah? And I ask that a lot of my advanced people, say 5%, 10%, 24%, 24% of American employees across all industries. So as I give you these numbers, kind of ask yourself, where's my team? How are we doing in relation? What about organizations that I think are the best? And what about the organizations I think are not the best? So 20%, 24% are, oh yeah. The second group are what are called the somewhat engaged. Now, as soon as I hear, Chad, that they're somewhat engaged, I realize that means they're also somewhat not engaged. Right? And somewhat engaged employees have a mantra too. And maybe you've heard it a few times. Their mantra is, okay, things are going to be great around here. Okay. Things are going to be terrible. Okay. Right. So what percentage of the 100% would you think are just okay? And the study is the average of the last 20 years, 49%. So about half of them are okay. So all of the math majors out there have already figured out there's 27% left. And that group is what are called the actively disengaged. I have a different name, cancer, right? And they have a mantra too, hopefully one you never hear on your team. And that mantra is, oh no, we're going to have a great year. Oh no, we're going to really dig deep and it's going to be fun. Oh no, 27% are oh no. But here's, Chad, what really strikes me as the key point and the key opportunity. That means 76% of the employees across every industry, yours and every other, are either just okay or oh no. If you want to transform your organization, turn that collective ego meter up, you got to flip that at the least 80% or more. Oh yeah, 20% maybe max okay, and 0 oh no. And really, a lot of my work is about helping people figure out how you make that happen by controlling your controllables.
Absolutely. And I think that's a fantastic point. One of the things that I think you talk about that leads kind of directly into that, and what I often talk to our leadership team about is, you hire that person on a Monday, and then by Thursday, they're terrible. They can't figure it out. They don't know what they're doing. And it's like, well, you were really excited about them on Monday when you hired them. But now on Thursday, it's a different story. And you talk about a concept called the Pygmalion effect, expectations that we put on people. And, to me, that study and a big part of flipping that so that we can get them highly engaged is the expectations as leaders that we put on the people that we lead. Speak to that, that concept, and then how you think it may relate to what you just talked about with that poll.
Oh, absolutely. And every great leader, every great teacher, every great parent is what I call a truly positive Pygmalion. Now, the Pygmalion effect comes from the Greek mythology. And on the island of Cyprus, there lived a wise and wonderful man whose name was Pygmalion. And Pygmalion was a guy you'd love to have as a leader. He was fair, he was passionate, he was compassionate. But the legend says that in his own personal life, he was extremely lonely. He had no one intimate and close to share his days with. Well, the legend says one day in the depths of this loneliness, he just couldn't take it anymore. And so he decided to just throw himself into a project. That's how he could kind of open his mind up again. And he was an artist, and he was sent to work to create a sculpture. And the legend says he worked for 3 days and 3 nights without even stopping. I'm sure you've had this happen, Chad. Sometimes you're working on a project, time disappears. You're just so into it. Well, that's the way he was. Well, 3 days later, he finally stood back and he looked at what he created. And what stood before him was a statue of a woman. And the legend says it was so much the essence of Pygmalion's pent-up loneliness and expectation that the legend says that the instant he looked at what he created, he fell in love. Well, the goddess of love, Aphrodite, kind of came down to earth and said, let's help this guy out this time. He's a good guy. So invisibly, she pulled out a magical bow and arrow, fired an arrow into the heart of the stone sculpture. Well, the instant that the arrow hit the stone, transformation occurred. And the stone turned into a living, breathing woman whose name was Galatea. Galatea opened her eyes. She saw Piggy. Piggy saw her. And they fell in love and lived happily ever after. Now, I have no idea if that's a true story or not, but I do know that the principle that it teaches, the Pygmalion effect that you just referred to, is perhaps the most fundamentally important key to being a leader who builds people. And what it says is that our thoughts, our beliefs, and expectations are magnetic. Then we not only do we see people, but the way we see them pulls them like a magnet in the direction of the way that we see them, whether it's good or it's bad. All right. And a guy from Harvard by the name of Robert Rosenthal came along and said, you know, this idea has been around forever, the Pygmalion effect, but nobody ever found out, is it really true or is it just convenient? And so he decided to study it and to try to find out whether or not the Pygmalion effect was really true and how strong it was. So what he did was he went into about 25 different elementary schools, and he went into the first grade classrooms, and only the first grade classrooms. And he went to the teachers and he told them that he had developed a test for first graders that would identify for them something that every employer would like to know about that new hire. It would identify which of the students were what Rosenthal called spurters. Now, a spurter was a child with great potential, but who had not really used it yet. And so his test would identify for the teachers those spurters. So he administered the test, about 500 different kids, 25 different schools, gathered up the tests. A week later, he came back to the teachers, and only the teachers, and he told them the results. He said Chad was a spurter, Kelsey was a spurter, Mike was a spurter. But guess what? It was a big fake. He had never graded anything. What he had done was administered a very basic first grade intelligence test, gathered up the papers and burned them. He never even looked at one of them. So completely at random, he had told the teachers which of the students were spurters. Well, guess what happened? And over 97% of the children that were randomly told to be spurters, they spurted. They rose to the top of the class and they stayed there in their academic careers, a long-term study. And the question is why? Who changed? It was the teachers, because the teachers no longer looked at Chad as just Chad. When they saw Chad, they saw a spurter. They saw that potential, and they taught that Chad differently. It was a brilliant study, proved the power of the Pygmalion effect, and Rosenthal got sued for it. Guess who sued him? The parents of the other kids, because the teachers taught them as if they were not spurters, as if they were just doing the best they could. So we have an opportunity every day with that new hire to really focus on their potential, focus on building their strengths. I had a high school teacher, his name was Mr. Anderson. And Mr. Anderson was the teacher, I bet you had one like this, who was just the one that everybody thought was cool. He was just a great guy because he looked at us as a Pygmalion. He looked at us more like we were college people rather than, kind of dumb high school kids. But one day he pulled me into his office in the 9th grade, and he was really serious this day. He was always had a twinkle in his eye, he was always laughing, but he's really serious. And he set me in a chair and he stood over me with his arms crossed and he looked at me. He says, Brian, a student like you only comes along once every 10 or 15 years. Now, I got to tell you, Chad, when he said it, it's real likely he meant it bad more than he meant it good. Because at that time, all I cared about was being the class clown. I just wanted people to like me. I wanted to be popular. So I was the kid who sat in your class waiting to pounce and say the stupid thing to get a rise out of the class. But somehow, Mr. Anderson, as a positive Pygmalion, saw something in me I was terrified to see in myself. And the next words he said changed my life and was truly the epitome of a truly positive Pygmalion. He said, Brian, there's something special in you, son. Stop wasting it. He said, every day is a gift, but you and you alone decide whether you open it or you leave it unopened. And son, you haven't opened one. He said, make every day a masterpiece. He said, make every day a day where you empty your tank. You give it all. Right? If you do that, you're going to be who you really are here to be. And it wasn't just what he said. It was much more the way he said it that shook up my heart, and it changed me. And here's the power of the Pygmalion. Had he not said those words to me that day, I never would have turned my academic career around that got me into Stanford. Going to Stanford meant I had to find a way to pay for it. That's got me into coaching. Coaching led me eventually to my wife and kids to this show today. So every day we have a chance with our kids, with our teammates, with our hires, right, to focus on their possibility more than their limits, not to pretend there's no limits, not to pretend that we can't make mistakes, because we do. But then it's shifting that focus to seeing more of their potential. And what you focus on is what you create. So as you look at people, you are moving them in the direction of what you see.
That's so powerful. And I think it's, it's in our society with the news and everything like that to see the bad side of things, to see the negative, to see, sky is falling type stuff. And, one message I always try, and certain I probably, kind of dispelled it from your writing is, think of that person in your life. And it's so funny. I literally just read that part about the you in school. And, what is it? Think about that person in your life that truly believed in you, not a parent, not someone in your family, but someone outside of your family that they didn't have to believe in you. Our parents, they're kind of, you're kind of tied to believing in you, but that person that didn't have the obligation to believe in you. And then what would your team look like if you were that person for everyone on your team? And to me, that draws us really, really close to finding a person's strengths and then doing whatever it is that we can to support them. Ultimately, creating that Pygmalion effect of, how we view them. So many times we view someone in a negative light and expect them to do great things. Like, I don't have any expectation for this person. Like, they're the worst person ever, but you want them to perform. It's like, well, that's not going to work. What is something that a leader out there listening that, is maybe struggling with someone on their team right now who, isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're, they're not seeing their potential, all of that. What's one of those things that you would recommend to leaders right now that they could do that would instantly kind of make a stride in the right direction?
Well, one of the most important principles that I teach and write about is really at the foundation of building trust and helping people know they're important. Because ultimately, when people feel important, they're going to start moving towards, oh, yeah. And when people feel unimportant and insignificant, they'll start moving towards, oh, no. And the foundational way to do that, all right, the foundational principle to help people know they're important. And I will say this, Chad, our job as leaders is to help the people that we lead, that we serve, that we care about, to know they're important, to know that they matter, to know that they can make a difference. And the foundation of that is a principle that I call being fully present. Now, being fully present means when you're with somebody, 100% of your mind, body, and spirit is with the person you're with where they are now. I'll say it again because it's so important. Being fully present means 100% of your mind, body, and spirit is with that person you're with where they are now. Now, how many of us have ever been with somebody where we know their body's present, but the rest of them is definitely in another county? Yeah, and here's an important question. How does it make you feel when you're with somebody you really want them to be present with you is not present with you? How does it make you feel when you're with somebody and that you really want to connect with, and you see they're much more interested in looking at their cell phone than they are connecting with you? And for every person I've ever known, from the most confident to the least confident, when there's somebody we really want to be present with us and they're not, it makes us feel worth less. It makes us feel insignificant and unimportant. Right. And so I'm suggesting that the foundation of maybe turning that employee around, of starting to elevate them, to communicate that sense that that you value them, is to be fully present. And I'll give you a really personal example of how powerful that can be. When I became the vice president, general manager of this large international training company, I inherited a director of operations who I knew had a lot of talent, a lot of energy. Her name was Raffaella Regina Rossi. What a great name. We called her R3. But when I took over as her boss, it was clear that she could not stand me. All right. And I wasn't used to this because I like people. And the reason was I had replaced somebody to be her boss who she was very loyal to. All right. And somehow she construed that it was my doing. So in any situation, when you're not working well with an employee doesn't seem to be getting it, there could be stuff going on you don't understand. But I knew that deep down inside, it was because she'd been loyal and she thought I had something to do with it. I really hadn't, but that was the way she took it. Now, for a while, we tried to, dance around it, to pretend that we had a good relationship. How effective do you think that was to our team, Chad? Everybody knew. People were walking on eggshells. There was tension. We were getting nothing done. So finally, I remembered what my job was, what your job is, what every leader's job is. My job was to be fully present. My job was to try to help her know her importance. And so I asked her to come in my office one day, and I was very straight with her. I said, Raphael, our team is floundering. We're not getting anywhere. And that's because I haven't been a good enough leader to break through with you so we can have a good working relationship. And I said, so I've asked you here today to do something that I know at first will sound kind of strange, but if you'll stick with me, I have a reason. I said, if you will allow me for 10 minutes, I will just listen to you. All right, I promise I will just listen. You have a free pass. You can say whatever you want, however you want to say it. I will not argue. I will not defend. I will not interrupt. I'll just listen. I said, all I ask is after those 10 minutes that you do the same for me and you just listen to me for 10 minutes. Would you try it? And Chad, I'll never forget Raphael's answer. She goes, Brian, I don't think I could talk for 10 minutes. I said, well, listen, we wanted this thing to get better. And she wanted it as much as I did. And so finally she said, oh, okay, I'll try. An hour later, she stopped talking. And in that hour, I just listened. In other words, I was fully present. And in that hour, without saying a word, she completely transformed our team, our relationship, our results. She realized that she really hadn't been very fair with me. She realized that if we actually put our energies together full out, turned up that eager meter, we'd be pretty unstoppable. Most of all, what she realized was how much she loved what we were doing, could be doing, should be doing, but weren't doing because of our stuff. When we left that room over the next 6 months, we got more done than we had in the previous couple of years. And everybody was charged up. We just had the greatest team. To this day, way over 30 years later, she's one of my best friends. All right, even though she still owes me 10 minutes, I never got my 10 minutes. So the best way that you can start with an employee to deliver that Pygmalion effect is to be fully present, to do a just listen session if it's gotten that far. My wife and I have done that at times when we're kind of so busy, not really connecting, and it brings back that trust. It brings back that clarity that you're important. And remember, whenever you're not present, you're speaking to that person even louder, all right, and saying that you're not that important. So if there's one thing I would start with, it's that, is being fully present, just listen.
Yeah, I think that's extremely powerful. I actually took a post-it note and wrote that on there, is make them feel important. And we do that, what do they always say? Actions speak louder than words. And, I can sit here and tell you how much I care about you and this, that, and the other. But if I'm, answering emails while you're trying to talk to me, my actions are definitely speaking louder than my words.
You nailed it. The classic study on communication, this is really important for every leader to know, analyze the three areas of communication. So whenever we're communicating with people, there are three parts to that communication. One part is what we say. So it's the words. The second part is not what we say, but how we say it. And that's our tonality. That's our voice quality. And the third area is neither what we say nor our tonality. It's our body language. Now, the study that was done at UCLA and repeated 20 years later came out exactly the same. And it's pretty striking to understand, because this is the way we deliver the Pygmalion effect. This is the way we are fully present. Said that 55% of communication, what makes communication work or not work, is body language. That's by far the biggest, the physiology. The second, 38%, is tonality, not what we say, but rather how we say it. Only 8% are the words. And so what you just said is so huge. You really get the heart of it. It's not what you say. It's really the belief is coming through your body language and your tonality. And when those don't align with your words, the words don't matter at all. All right. So it's really important to understand that you got to put that cell phone down. All right. When you're with that person, put it aside. focus on them in that moment, look them in the eye. It's amazing to me that the most present person I've ever met in my life was John Wooden. All right. And John Wooden, when you were with him, here's the most successful guy in the history of his field. When you were with him, you felt important because bombs could be going off 5 feet away from you. And all he focused on was you in that moment. And that really is the heart of what made him such a great leader, and why every athlete who ever played for him, every coach speak of him in awe. And it was because he made them feel like they were the important ones.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic point. One of the things I want to kind of get your opinion on, when I read what you've written about John Wooden, I think that some people may pull away from that. That's really simple. Like, that super simple stuff that he did. Like, could that ever be replicated today? What are your thoughts on that? And I guess as it relates to, we have a lot of discussions around this at the office of, just dealing with different generations. Hey, we're of this generation. How do we deal with people of that generation? What are your thoughts as far as how Wooden's principles relate to the world we live in today?
Well, first of all, I love that you brought up the question, because to me, simplicity is genius. And the reason is that when we keep things simple, we create a solid basis to hold on to. We can build on things. When we try to give too much, when we complicate things, we get lost. I'll give you a really great example. When I first started being a professional speaker 30 some years ago, my ego meter was off the charts. However, I've wanted to tell everybody everything I had ever thought about. And so my seminars were kind of like drinking from a fire hose. You drink from a fire hose, all you do is get thirsty. And people would go, wow, that was really something. They walk out going, I don't remember anything. All right. Then I started to realize that the things that I was trying to communicate, I've been thinking about for my whole life. They were maybe hearing these things for the first time. And that if I try to give so much, if I overcomplicated, the result was they would get nothing. They would be just overloaded. And so that's when I shifted to really my programs and everything I do, in my books, really focus on being simple. Because if you can give people 1, 2, or 3 learning points, some things to focus on, you can give them 3 more once they've mastered those. You can keep building that way. And that was really the foundation of John Wooden's philosophy. Now, I truly believe that simplicity is a cornerstone no matter the generation. It really builds a connection. I also believe that being fully present, which is who John Wooden was, is absolutely eternal. It's as powerful with Generation Z as it is with baby boomers and everywhere in between. But probably the most important way that we can really work with different generations and communicate with them is to understand the power of our energy. That energy is a choice. Now, a lot of people, Chad, think about energy in kind of the same way they think about the weather. It's kind of like, man, I hope I have enough. I hope the weather's great for that family picnic. Hope weather's great for spring break. Isn't that the way we sometimes think of our own energy? Man, I hope I have enough energy to get through these 7 Zoom calls. Hope I have enough energy to make it through this crazy week. Hope I have enough energy when I get home to not fall asleep when I hit the couch. But energy is not like the weather. Energy is your choice. And when you start to understand that choice, then you have a mechanism to affect everyone and energize and engage everyone, no matter the generation. And why is energy so important? 2 reasons. First reason, it allows me to introduce your audience to my favorite word. And the word is, and what would be a day in our life without another acronym in the HVAC world? All right. And the word is WOO, which is woo. And it's really fun to say. Woo. Woo stands for window of opportunity. The window of opportunity is every precious moment. What do I mean? We never know if the next person we'll meet today, next customer, next phone call, if that person might become a lifelong friend, as we didn't know it when we met our lifelong friend. We never know if the next time we talk to our son or our daughter, we write that note to our son or our daughter. We never know if the next thing we say to the next person may make such a difference in their life that their whole life gets better, like Mr. Anderson did for me that day. So the question to every one of us, because we're all leaders, is not, is there a woo? There is. The question we got to ask ourselves is, how many of those have we missed? How many windows of opportunity we have missed in the last month alone with the people that matter the most to us? And why do we miss them? Well, the first reason why energy is so important is energy helps you seize more woos. Simple as that. In other words, have you ever noticed when you have more energy, how much more alert you are to possibility, to solution, right? When you have energy, right, you feel like you're looking for that possibility. And within every adversity is planted the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. In other words, the toughest things we've ever had to face in our life are often the things that help us grow the most. When you have energy, you start looking for that seed of possibility. When you don't have energy, you get beaten down by that adversity. So the first reason why energy is so important is it helps you seize more woos. Second reason, and this one is worth everything if you want to impact any generation. I hope everybody really takes this one in. To your children, no matter their age, for as long as you draw breath, to every customer or potential customer, to every teammate, to your boss, to your team, to your peers, to anyone that you want to have a major positive impact on in your life. Your energy is your example. Your energy is your example. In other words, people, as we just learned, won't remember that much of what you say, but they'll never forget your energy. They get your energy long before you open your mouth, long after you've closed your mouth. They get your energy over the phone. They've never seen your face. They get your energy the way send an email. Email does not stand for electronic mail, stands for energy mail, for goodness sakes. So to everyone we touch, our energy is our example. So John Wooden was not a jump up and down guy, but his energy was so apparent. He was so focused, so present in a quiet kind of a way. So when I say energy, it's not jumping up and down, but it's about really bringing your eager meter up to its highest level. And why energy is a choice and how you can build it is there's two ways to build energy that's unstoppable. Number one, change the way you move. If you want to move your life, move yourself. All right. Anytime you ever notice when you start moving, how much more alert you are to possibility, how much quicker you are. So elevate your movement. I bet everybody knows somebody in their life who at an advanced age has this incredible energy. And though I don't know who you would think about when you think about that person, I bet I know two things about them. One, they're one of your heroes, like John Wooden was for me. And number two, they keep moving. We don't get older, we just stop moving. So if you want to change your energy, start moving more in your life. Number two, focus on your purpose every day. Purpose is the ultimate source of energy. Before I speak, I bring with me a photo of my family. They are my purpose. And as beautiful as they are, I don't bring it with me to show the audience. I bring it with me to show me. And the last thing I do before I speak is I go to that picture of my family and I spend present time with them. And I think of how much they mean to me, how much I want to do for them, how much we've shared together. And in that moment of focusing on my purpose, something magical happens. It changes me. Suddenly, it doesn't matter if I've missed a flight. It doesn't matter if my knees ache. It doesn't matter if I'm beat down. All that matters when I've realized my purpose is if I don't give my audience my best right here, right now, I'm not giving my family my best. And that changes me because I simply won't do that. So if you want to really communicate and build people in your team, if you really want to help people understand that they're important, it starts by being present. And then it's about start to elevate your energy by choice instead of chance in every precious woo.
That is so powerful. I think that you really articulating the power of choice is, we all have a choice. And I often speak to my team as far as, as leaders, we're tasked with taking responsibility. And that responsibility empowers us. That responsibility, while some may shy away from it, taking responsibility for everything in your life will empower you to do really, really courageous things. And I think that fits right along with your philosophy of, we have a choice and our energy is our choice. And that energy is developed by understanding that we can make a difference, and that we can have an effect and that we can seize that window of opportunity. So thank you for sharing that. I really relate with that. And I think that, even on my personal kind of leadership journey, that understanding of that responsibility piece has just been so big for my development as a leader, because you stop blaming outside things, you stop making excuses as to why you can't do something, and realize that you can do whatever you set your mind to.
Man, you are incredibly insightful. I'm really enjoying this conversation because everything that I teach is about choice. Being present is a choice. Your energy is a choice. And here's a simple way to really kind of gauge where you are on that personal responsibility and understanding of choice and improve it. And that is to listen to your own self-talk and the way you talk to others as well. And if you hear yourself say these words, either inside your own mind in your self-talk or out to others, these words, I have to do this, all right, or I need to do this. Now, when you get down to it, here's the essence of choice. What do you really have to do in this life? There's only one thing I can think of, and that may be a choice too, and that's die. Everything else is a matter of choice. All right. And so if you shift from I have to do this, because where did that come from? The words I have to actually came to us out of a really good reason. And that is when we're little kids, our parents, when we're young, want to protect us. They want to keep us safe. And so, and they want us to learn discipline. They want us to learn good things. And so when we're a little kid, we hear these words, you have to do this. And there's two other words attached to it, or else something bad's going to happen. All right. Or else you're going to get in trouble, or else you could get hurt, or else you'll be grounded, whatever it is. Well, over time, that or else kind of disappears to our consciousness, but it never disappears unconsciously. So every time you say, I have to, what's also even going on in your mind is, or else something bad's going to happen. So how do you change that? Well, start consciously shifting. Whenever you hear you say, I have to, shift it to, I want to. From have to choose to, want to, like to. What you're saying is, I have a choice in this. What you're saying is, it no longer is about something that's forced from the outside. And when you live your life from a want to, choose to, like to, love to, you embrace responsibility instead of feeling like it's a heavy weight on you. All right. And that's an incredibly powerful way to live your life. That makes you easy to impress and hard to offend. And if there's a recipe for incredible leadership, that is the one. Be easy to impress and hard to offend. Easy to impress means that you're interested in people. You're looking for their possibilities. You're a positive Pygmalion. You're fascinated by the differences in people that can teach you things that you wouldn't have seen had they not been there. When you're hard to offend, you stop taking things personal. You move from ego to we go. All right. And so that only comes when you when you live your life from choice instead of have to.
Yeah, that's extremely powerful. I especially like the point about listening to yourself talk. The one thing that I would add to that, because I do that a lot, is not so much verbally say, but what do you say in your head? We've all been, come downstairs and the dishes aren't done. Well, whose fault is this? Who's responsible for this? Or, you come to work and, hey, this project isn't done. You may not say it verbally, but you're thinking it. It's in your head as to whose fault is that. And I think that, as you said, shifting that in our minds to take responsibility for whatever it is and seeing the best in people. And when we can do that, when we can be easy to impress and hard to offend, life gets a heck of a lot better. And the impact that we have on people is going to be far greater than always looking for reasons to point out their flaws or their shortcomings or their weaknesses.
I love it. I love it. You said a word before that I want to jump on because it's such an important word to understand, and you get it. And that is the single most destructive word in the language of leadership and teams is the word BLAME, blame. And blame kills teams. It kills marriages. It kills relationships. And it's not to say that people don't mess up. We all mess up. It's here, but there's a very practical and powerful reason why blame is so destructive, why it serves no purpose. And it's simply this. Think about blame in the context of time. Is blame about the past, the present, or the future? Blame is always about the past. Can you do anything about what's past? No. So whenever you find yourself blaming, guess where you are? You're in the past. And the only place where you can do something constructive is in the present, building to a better future. So to be a blame buster, something I love to call it, is simply this. It's to say, it's not to pretend we didn't mess up or that I didn't mess up or our team didn't make a mistake. It's to say, what happened? What can we learn from it? How can we make this help us be better? That transforms a team into a team that's always looking to grow and improve and not afraid to take good risks. And it brings us to a word that I also think is so important in I know you'll get this one too, and it's the word now. Since blame is in the past, we want to be in the now. We talked a lot about being present, about choosing energy, about choices in the now. And I believe that every day we're given this incredible gift, and it's called today. And in that day, we have this incredible kind of journey in front of us. I look at it as in the same way as there's a road right in front of us every day. When we wake up in the morning, we got this path in front of us. Well, many times during the day, we're given the same window of opportunity. And it comes in the form of a Y in that road in front of us. One side goes off, one part of the Y goes off in one direction, and it says, as soon as. All right. The other side goes off the other direction, and it says, now. Now, to tell you the truth, sometimes as soon as looks easier. It's well lit. There's no ice. There's no potholes. It's been repaved. It's pretty straight. Now is curvy and twisty and a little scary sometimes. There's even an ice patch here and there. But I like to say it this way. If you choose the road called as soon as, it is a direct road to never. It only leads to perpetual procrastination. Choose the now. Carpe woo, seize the now. So if there's people in your life that you need to acknowledge and appreciate and thank, do it now. If there's people in your life you haven't been present with, you can change it now. You can choose differently. If you've been living at level 6 on a 10-point energy scale, you can change your movement and focus on purpose. You can change it now. And if you do that, you're constantly stepping forward and making progress. So, the past is history, the future a mystery. The gift is now. That's why we call it the present.
Fantastic. I don't know that there is something better that we could kind of end on and provide the listeners an action step to do something now. Stop waiting around. Stop waiting for something to happen or for you to achieve a certain title. The time is now as we all develop into the leader that we are capable of. And to me, leadership starts in the now. It starts by, even if you have 0 direct reports or whatever that looks like, we all set the course of our leadership journey by leading ourselves today. As you pointed out earlier in the podcast, our actions are far more powerful than our words. So what are people seeing you do today in the now? What are they seeing you do as it relates to others? All of those things, I think, are important things to keep in mind as we all, try to emulate the great coach John Wooden and how he led his teams. Success will find us. It's just a matter of when it will find us based on our actions.
Perfect.
Brian, I cannot thank you enough. That was, I learned so much as I do on all of these. And I really just appreciate your time and your willingness to share and just filled with gratitude that you would take a little bit of time out of your day. I guess to wrap up, where can people find you? Where can they learn more about these concepts?
Awesome. Yeah. And first of all, I want to tell you, I've been on many, many shows, but you have a great understanding of this concept of breakthrough leadership. And it's been an honor to be on the show. The easiest way to find out about me and my books and most of all my speaking is on my website. It's just brianbiro.com, www.brianbiro.com, BRIANBIRO. I love what I do, and I'd love to share it with any of your listeners in a way that I could help support them to be the breakthrough leaders they're here to be.
Absolutely. Again, thank you, Brian. Thank you, listeners. We're really excited about hopefully bringing more guests on that share a very similar passion as Brian does for leadership development and impacting others. So, again, as always, keep growing out there. As he said, the time is now. It is the present. It is today. You have the opportunity to make an impact both in your life and the lives of others. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I would greatly appreciate if you would rate the show or share it with someone who might enjoy it. As the name suggests, we are always looking to grow, so let me know in the comments what you thought and if there is anything you would like to hear on future episodes. Come back again soon, and always keep growing out there.